ROI. If you ever want to run a successful e-commerce campaign, you need to know what it is and how to calculate it. ROI stands for return on investment. It's the most important metric that will give you a sense of how profitable or how successful your advertising campaigns are. Furthermore, you need to understand the difference between ROI, which is return on investment, and ROAS, which is return on ad spend. ROAS only takes into account the money you spent on advertising, and ROI, return on investment, also takes into account the company's profit margins. So let's dive right in.
One of the most important things you need to know, whether you're managing your own account, whether you're managing the account of your client, or you're managing the ad campaigns for the company you work for, is how profitable your campaigns are. In fact, determining profitability might be the most important thing you need to be able to determine effectively when assessing the effectiveness and the efficiency of any ad campaign. Now, off the bat, the most important thing to know in the realm of calculating profitability is the difference between ROI, which stands for return on investment, and ROAS, which stands for return on ad spend. These terms have become confused, interchanged, and used in ways that are not representative of what they truly mean. So let's talk about the difference for a second. Return on investment is a more complete global number, which takes into account the company's cost of goods, cost of operations, cost of manufacturing, cost of shipping. There's a lot of costs that go into running a business aside from how much you spent on AdWords, or how much you spent on Facebook ads or Twitter ads or media buying, whatever it may be. There's shipping the goods, there's manufacturing the goods, there's warehousing. If it's not e-commerce and you're not selling physical products, it's paying a sales team, it's running your website, it's paying office space. There's a whole host of different things that eat into your actual revenue, and that are important numbers to know when determining profit. Return on ad spend is a much more simple and linear number. It's a much more simple and linear equation. It's simply the amount of money you made divided by the amount of money you spent on AdWords. So the equation for return on ad spend, which doesn't take into account anything else other than what you spent on the ads, is very simple. It's the total revenue divided by the cost of advertising. That's return on ad spend. ROI, in truth, is revenue minus cost divided by cost. And cost takes into account more than what you spent on actual ads. Now, most companies will be able to give you a sense of their profit margins, and this video is not geared towards how to determine your profit margins. That's a very complex thing. What elements do you take into account? Do you take into account the lighting bill, or do you not take that into account when determining your profit margin per dollar? But most companies should get a good sense, or should have a sense, of what their profit margins are when looking at the total revenue. Now, in this account we're seeing here, I happen to know, because this is a client of ours, and they've told us, and we've sat down with them and helped them figure out this number with more accuracy. Their profit margins are 40%, which means they make 40 cents on every dollar of revenue. Now, to calculate return on ad spend, I didn't need to know that, because analytics gives us this information for us right here in the report. As you can see, I'm in analytics under acquisition, AdWords, campaigns. I'm looking at all the AdWords campaigns here that have been active in this date range, and I want to calculate my return on ad spend. So that's the first thing I'd like to do, and that's very simple. All I would do is take my total revenue, which is $12,049, and let's bring over our calculator. So we have $12,049, and we'll divide that by our total cost, which is $9,451, divided by $9,451, and that gives me 1.27. So we move the decimal places over 2 points, and we get 127% return. 127% return means we're making $1.27 for every dollar spent. We're making $1.27 for every dollar spent. Now, we don't need to calculate this by hand in analytics because analytics luckily gives us a tab that will show us our return on ad spend. If we find the Explorer section up here and we navigate over to the clicks menu and we click on that, Google Analytics will output us a column called ROAS, return on ad spend. And as we could see, it calculated us that number, 127%. And it also gives us the ROAS for each individual campaign. And if I were to click into any given campaign here, I'd get those numbers. I'd get the ROAS numbers for each individual ad group. And likewise, I would get those numbers for each individual keyword. This campaign just has one ad group in it. And if I click into here, I would get all my ROAS at the keyword level. So let's go back to the campaigns. That's ROAS, very simple calculation. It shows me that I am profitable. And what does that mean I'm profitable in the context of return on ad spend? I am making more money in revenue than I'm spending on ads. But is the company actually profitable from this AdWords campaign? That is yet to be determined. So let's go ahead and calculate our ROI based on our knowledge that we need to have. In this case, it's a 40% profit margin. And it's a very simple calculation to do as well. What we want to do to first calculate gross profit is to take our total profit, our total revenue, so it's $12,049, and we're going to multiply that by 0.4. Multiplied by 0.4 equals $4,819.60. As you can see, this is less than half our total revenue. Our gross profit is less than half of our gross revenue, which makes sense because we're making less than 50 cents on the dollar. We're making 40 cents on the dollar for this specific company. Now, if I want to now take into account my ROI from my ad campaign, I divide my total gross profit, which is $4,819.60, and I divide that by my total cost, which is $9,451, divided by $9,451, and I get a return on investment of 50%, which is not good, folks. This means we're losing money. For every dollar spent, we're losing 50 cents on advertising. 50% profit margin means we're losing 50%. Now, just as an example, let's say this company had a 70% profit margin. So we would take the same gross revenue, $12,049, multiply that by 0.7. Okay, so we have $12,049. I'm sorry, I have to clear that out. $12,049 multiplied by 0.7 is $8,434.30 divided by my total revenue of $94.51, and I get an ROI of 89%, which still means we're losing money. We're losing 11 cents on the dollar. So while this account in this date range might have looked good on paper from a return on ad spend point of view, we made more money. We generated more revenue than what we spent. The company as a whole, taking into account the cost of goods, actually is losing money. And that's the number, and we determine that by calculating our ROI. Now, this is in analytics. I wanted to show you what this looks like in AdWords. So here I have another campaign open in AdWords, and AdWords makes it very easy for us to see our ROAS, our return on ad spend. And that's through the column called conversion value divided by cost. If you don't have this column open, it's very easy to get. You open up your columns, modify columns, jump over to conversions, and you want to make sure you have, scroll down until you'll see conversion value divided by cost and total conversion value. You want to make sure these two columns are added. Now, just bear in mind, we need to have a conversion value in order to really calculate ROI and ROAS appropriately. Now, if you're an e-commerce company selling multiple products and each product has a different price, and people could order multiple products, which is exactly what the case is in this account that we're looking at, then your conversion code needs to be modified to track transaction-specific values. We're not going to cover that now in detail, but just keep in mind that you have to have that set up if AdWords is to pull back the total cart order total from the shopping cart when a customer checks out. And if you do this intelligently, you'll have Your developer or yourself will customize the code in a way where it detracts or it subtracts the shipping costs from that output. If you're a company selling one single product, for example, let's say you're selling a book and that book costs $5, then your total conversion value will just be $5. You don't need to set up the transaction specific values. When you set up your conversion tracking code in AdWords, you'll just put a static value of $5 per conversion. Okay, so that's the story with the conversion codes, but you want to make sure that your total conversion value and your conversion value divided by cost columns are added. I have them added already down here. I'll hit apply, and here I have my return on ad spend, because conversion value, what is conversion value? Essentially, that's essentially your gross revenue. Your total conversion value divided by the cost of advertising. In this case, let's say in this campaign here, $114,000, $668. We divide that into $325,000 and we get 2.8, which once again on paper looks like a good number. We're making $1.80 on every dollar spent. It's a 280% ROI. But do we know if these campaigns are truly profitable? Now, I happen to know that the return for this company is 60%. They make 60 cents on the dollar. But I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 campaigns here, and I'd like to get my ROI in all these campaigns without having to calculate it by hand every time. And that's very easy to do. To do that, we're just going to download this report, and you could do this report. You could download this report at the ad group level, the keyword level. I'm just going to show it to you here at the campaign level, just to get a sense how to calculate ROI efficiently. So we're going to download the report into Excel. We'll open that up, and here we have our report. Now, some of this information we don't need. These columns down here are summary columns. We'll delete those, and I will expand all my rows, columns like this, and I'm going to add a new column called ROI. Okay. Now, to get the ROI, we write a simple formula in Excel. So we want to first take our total conversion value. We want to multiply that by 0.6, because that is the margin for this company. We want to divide that total number, which is our gross profit, by our cost of advertising, which is G3, and you hit enter. And you could drag the lower right hand corner of the cell, wait until it turns into a black plus sign, drag it down, and that equation will repeat itself for each row, and I have my ROI. Very straightforward. So while we see we have a 363% return on ad spend with a 60% profit margin, we have a 217% return on investment, 170% return on investment for this campaign, so on and so forth. And as you can see here, we're looking very good because each campaign is profitable. And it not only is it profitable taking into account our cost of advertising, which is ROAS, it's profitable taking into account our cost of goods as well, subtracting 40 cents on the dollar. For example, you could always go in there and change the equation. If you find out that your margins are not 60%, they're really 54%. If you have it more precise, you just change that, hit enter, and you want to drag that down like this. And now you have your updated ROI based on your new understanding of the company's margins. Now, bear in mind, you don't want to stop here if you're optimizing the account. Even though you see an account that's profitable, we're almost doubling our money here, 1.96%. If you were to go into these individual ad groups and keywords, the 80-20 rule is going to apply 9 times out of 10 when it comes to ROI and return on ad spend. You'll be able to find specific ad groups, specific keywords, combinations of ads and keywords that are really generating the lion's share of the profit margins, and you'll have other ad groups and keywords inside a profitable campaign that are actually losing money. So you could really understand ROI, understand ROAS, and use that information to find the areas of the account where you should optimize, find the areas of the account where you should be bidding more conservatively, and also determine the more profitable areas where you could start bidding a little bit more aggressively. And now that I know my ROI, I can know how much more aggressively I could actually bid. Now, there's still another piece of the puzzle that's missing. In this account, right, this was the troubled account we were looking at earlier. We want to know, what is my break-even point? How much money do I need to make on the dollar for this company to start being profitable? And if you remember, this was the account that had a 40% profit margin. So to do that, we figure out a very simple equation. We open up our calculator again, and we take $1, we divide that by 0.4, and we hit equals, and that's 2.5. $2.50 is our break-even point. What does this mean? This means that when this client generates $2.50 of revenue, they only make $1. They make $1 out of every $2.50 generated. You then have $1 left over. You subtract $1 from the advertising, and you're left with $0. Now, that's the break-even point. For this company to be profitable, we need a 2.51% return on ad spend. So, for example, if the company made $2.51, what was their gross profit? Their gross profit was $1.01. You take away $1 of advertising, and they're left off with $0.01. So in order to calculate the break-even point, you take $1 divided by their profit margins. For example, if their profit margin was 72%, you take $1 divided by 0.72, $1.38. So so they need to have 138% return on ad spend to break even. They need to have 139% return on ad spend just to make a penny on the dollar. So in this example, for every $1.38 of gross revenue, they make $1 in profit. Okay? And then you take away the $1 from advertising, and you're left with break even. If they make $1.39, or let's say they make $1.40, they make $1.40 in gross revenue, they made $1.02 of profit. You take away $1 for advertising, you're left off with 2 cents. But they would need a 139% ROI, which would look like 139% in analytics because they show you by percentage. And in AdWords, they show it to you with the decimal point. So it would be 1.39. That would be the break-even point for this account if you were looking at it in AdWords. So the next biggest question, which we'll cover in future videos, is really figuring out exactly how to calculate your profit margins. There's a lot of different factors. When it's e-commerce, sometimes it could be easier because you know the cost of manufacturing the goods, you know the cost of shipping the goods. You could understand your process more efficiently, but there are cases where things get much more complex. For example, you might have a company that doesn't sell the product on the internet. They might get 10,000 clicks. Those 10,000 clicks might turn into 50 people downloading a sales form form that will express their interest in the product. 40 of those 50 form submissions will ultimately attend a free webinar, and 4 of the webinar attendees will ultimately buy the product. So figuring out ROI based on cost per click and how many clicks you got gets trickier. You need to understand what you're paying your sales team. You need to understand the actual cost of the product. You need to take into account if that specific product costs money to manufacture, or is it a digital product where the profit margins are 100%. You need to take into account whether or not your rent and your overhead will eat into your gross profit, which usually it would, and it should if you're going to get these numbers very accurate. But we'll cover that stuff in a different video. The point is, you should know what ROAS is. You should know what ROI is. You should know how to calculate them. And you should know how to download that data into Excel and be able to calculate for yourself an ROI column so you could see on the keyword, ad group, and campaign level your actual ROI, which is unique, which is why AdWords themselves and analytics doesn't have a column to teach you to show you your ROI, because every company's ROI is going to be different, and that's going to be a number you need to figure out. You need to speak with your colleagues, the boss, your client, whatever it may be. You need to know what are your profit margins in general. And if the client doesn't know, you ask them for a ballpark, and then you probably should estimate on the conservative level, because there's always unknown and hidden costs and these miscellaneous different factors that come into play. So I hope that helped you. I hope it's useful, and I hope you're able to take this information and use it in an effective way in your own campaigns. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them below. I will do my best to get back to you as soon as possible, and I look forward to speaking to you all next time. Thanks a lot.